Well, good morning, everyone. Those of you physically present, good to have you here. And those of you online, welcome. I believe we'll have a few more joining there. So we'll give it just a moment, let everybody get settled in and logged in. All right, we'll begin. So, my name is John Bruna, and I have the honor of offering a talk today from the Center of Contemplative Research. A real gift and an honor to be here. And today's topic is the skill of free will. And I'm hoping for a rich dialogue. We have people online joining, as well as people here. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. But we always begin with just meditation. Ghatika is called the Ghatika Monthly. Ghatika is a Vedic time measurement, 24 minutes. So we'll go ahead and we'll just begin with that. We'll have a nice little intention, and then we'll settle, we'll ground, relax the body, and then focus the awareness on the breath. So those of you who care to join me, I'll just guide that. If you just like to do your own meditation, you can just mute me. My wife likes doing that. Finds it quite meaningful at times. Okay. And as the bell fades, I'd like to take a moment to just be clear about our purpose. We're about to meditate. Why? Why would we meditate? How is this helpful? Is it worth our time? In the cultivation of free will, it's about having conscious choices. The ability to choose to do something that is meaningful, helpful, beneficial in some way. So as we prepare to meditate, it's also very valuable to be clear about why you meditate. What is the purpose, and is it worth your time? This specific practice that I'm about to guide is a shamatha practice. It's a practice that is designed to cultivate attention, to develop our capacity to choose what we attend to, and not be a prisoner of every thought, worry, impulse that arises in the mind. It allows us to, over time, not be caught up in worries, fears, cravings, envy, all types of afflictive states that arise, and choose what to attend to and how to attend to it. It quite literally is the medicine, the antidote to an obsessive, compulsive, busy mind. So recognizing that is the purpose of this specific meditation. Take a moment to, reflect. Will this be helpful for you? Would you like to be free from an obsessive, compulsive, busy mind? And if so, if this practice seems meaningful for you, I invite you to engage in it with me. And the practice has 3 steps, really. Taking some time to ground, taking some time to relax the body, and then focusing on the object. let us begin by taking a little time to ground, to become aware of the sensations of contact your body has with the floor, cushion, the chair, hands in the lap. Just wherever there is contact, becoming aware of that contact. And let your awareness just descend into your body and settle into these areas of contact. And rest your awareness there. I like to visualize pebbles coming to rest at the bottom of a lake, just letting my awareness settle in these areas of contact. Just rest there. Now I invite you to take a little time to check in with your body and relax and release any tension or tightness that you might be experiencing. And the method here is to just bring your awareness right up to the top of your head, right up to the crown. I like to zero in on an area about the size of a quarter, see if I can be aware of the sensations there. Sometimes I can, sometimes not so much. And now, from the crown of your head, let your awareness start to be guided by you through your body, letting your awareness be a soothing balm that relaxes and releases any tension it touches along the way. And we'll just do this in stages, letting that soothing balm of awareness flow from the crown of the head down to your chin, letting it relax and release any tightness in your forehead. Soften the muscles around the eyes, your cheeks, relaxing your jaw, etc. Now letting that awareness flow down into your neck and shoulders. From your left shoulder, let that soothing balm of awareness flow down to your elbow, and from the left elbow down to the wrist, and from the wrist to the fingertips. And from the right shoulder, down the right arm, to the elbow, to the wrist, and then to the fingertips. Now bringing your awareness back into your upper torso, back up to the shoulders. Just making sure they're square, relaxed, open. And then letting your awareness flow from the shoulders down to the waist, into the hips. Now from the waist down the left leg, first right to the knee, and from the knee to the ankle, and from the ankle to the toes. Now from the waist down the right leg, to the knee, to the ankle, to the toes. And now let your awareness expand. Let it fill the entirety of your body, right out to the edges. Let your body be a body of awareness. And just rest in that awareness for a bit. Nowhere to go, nowhere to be. Simply be aware. And then when you're ready, I invite you to shift your attention to the breath and let the breath now become the object of your meditation. Allow the breath to be natural and unmodified, simply Observe. Your body knows how to breathe. Become an observer, aware of the sensations of the breath as it enters and exits your body. Each breath a new moment, each breath a new opportunity to be present. And if you notice your mind wander, no problem. That's why we meditate. We notice. We become mindful. We relax, we release the thoughts, and we return to the breath. We establish choice, letting go of the thoughts, and returning to the breath. When you're ready, I invite you to bring your awareness forward. No hurries, no worries. Nice to transition smoothly and gently. It's not a bad idea to pat yourself on the back as I'm meditating. All right. The practice we just did, I think, is a real microcosm of the idea of free will. You may notice that you decide, yeah, okay, I'm going to meditate. And the mind might have said, well, I think we're going to talk about dessert later. Or a plan that I need to get involved in, or things to do. I noticed when I was meditating this morning, my mind kept coming up to contemplating free will, because I was going to give a talk on it. So it just kept popping up. And so then I have this opportunity as it pops up. Do I engage with the thought, or do I make a choice and come back to the breath? What am I here for? And in this way, there's a real wonderful opportunity to start cultivating this opportunity of choice. So I'm meditating, I'm on an object, I'm on the breath. This thought comes up, and I may have been thinking about it for a while before I caught it, right? I'm already kind of down the loop a little bit. But when I notice my mind has wandered, when I notice I'm engaged in a thought, I just became mindful. I know where my mind is. Oh, I'm thinking about this. I'm not meditating on the breath. And this is where all the power is. I'm mindful. I know where my mind is. Now I have a choice. And then I can choose to come back or to engage with the thought. How often are we mindful? And therein lies the big challenge. If I want any free will in my life, I need to know what I'm doing. And so much of our lives as human beings can easily be caught up in autopilot, mindlessness, and this practice just so clear to me. How easy it is to not be aware of what I'm doing. Because whenever you notice you're not on the breath, what you will never remember is leaving the breath. Right? I was on the breath, and now I notice my mind. In between is unawareness. I'll never remember leaving the breath. And at some point I'll catch my mind. How much of our life is like that? I'm doing the dishes, but I'm planning my next week, or I'm, ruminating on this thing I did yesterday, or somebody said to me, and our mind is on its own, right? Just doing what it does. So we start to recognize, if I am even going to contemplate the idea of free will, I need to know what I'm doing. I need to know where my mind is. And as we started the meditation, this idea of why am I doing what I'm doing? If I'm not aware of why I'm doing it, is there any choice involved? Or am I living a life on habit, on autopilot? How many things do we do just because that's what we do? That's what the impulses do. That's what I'm conditioned to do. I've done it this way all the time. It's, getting in the car. I don't even think about shifting gears if I'm on a manual anymore. Just kind of know how to do it. And how aware am I of my driving and what I'm attending to, or all the thoughts going on in my mind? And so with this capacity to sit here and think, how much free will do I have in my life? And there's this, big debates. Do you have free will, or do you not have free will? And, there's people who make a whole living trying to tell you have no free will. Which, why would I buy that book? Yeah, you got no free will. You're just a product of your brain and chemistry and, the environment and the conditions and, Yeah, I'll buy 2 of those books. Versus free will is why we suffer. So, Judeo-Christian thought process of, God gave you free will, and you always have a choice. And based on your choices, you're either going to make moral, healthy choices or you're not. And if you don't make them correctly, there's going to be a lot of suffering, right? Going to hell or going to heaven. So there's a whole view is we suffer due to free will. I contend that we suffer due to a lack of free will. We all know so many things that we can do in our life that would be healthy, meaningful, I'd feel good about. And then we don't do them, right? And to me, that's this whole journey. That I can absolutely know things to do to improve my life, to be healthy, to be well, and I don't do them. I can absolutely, be very clear in a moment, be really healthy to do this thing right now. And my mind, body, experiencing is saying, we're not doing that. Yeah, maybe tomorrow, Yeah, that's right, tomorrow. We'll do it tomorrow. And so what is this absolute resistance to doing things I know that will absolutely improve the quality of my life? And therein lies, this real recognition that we, in many ways, have very little, if any, free will, right? So we don't have the free will to just say, I am no longer going to be frustrated with my mother-in-law or my father-in-law or whoever, right? I'm just using in-law because that's a common thing. If you're watching my mother-in-law, I love you, never frustrated with you. Just an analogy. So, but or our partner, right? Or our kids. I'm going to be totally patient with my daughter. And then you may find that you're not totally patient, right? So we don't really have the ability to say, even like meditate, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to be on the breath, no problem. And then the mind says, oh no, we're gonna be planning our next vacation or our next business enterprise or whatever it's going to do. And so we really start to recognize that we have a lot of conditioning, a lot of habits, a lot of tendencies. We are a product of our environment. So on this argument of no free will, what they're emphasizing generally is how much a part of our experience is from our conditioning, our habits, our environments, and the tendencies that arise. And so we're very conditioned. Right, we're very conditioned. Whether I was beaten as a kid, loved as a kid, whether I had these experiences, whether these types of food I was raised in, this culture I was raised in, did they promote, a sense of inclusion, or, was it, thinking of others as different, and so our conditioning, our environment has a lot to do with our experience, what we've been exposed to. Traumas we've experienced, care that we've been given, and the view of the world that we have. And so there's this conditioning that is making decisions in even how we experience something, right? And so some people experience like water. Some people are water people. I have a friend, she can't drive by a river without jumping in it. She's going to be driving through a bunch of water. It's going to be an extra few hours, It's just water person, Some people not that into water. I actually almost drowned when I was a child. My little brother pushed me in a pool. I was a little kid. I couldn't swim yet. And I just right down to the bottom, I thought, very traumatic event. My sister saw it and got in and got me out. And so that, I often, around pools had this experience when I was younger. It was just I did want to swim and did want to get in, but there's just this tension around it, right? So we're conditioned, right, due to experiences and things. And as we know, we can absolutely want to do certain things, and we may actually start doing them. Thinking about New Year's resolutions, right? Oh yeah, I'm going to do this. And then we do it for a few weeks. Life's better. I'm much better. Oh, this is working. I'm healthier. And, a few weeks later, I'm not doing that. Took a day off and things. And then I can't get back into that habit again. Even if I know it's good. Even if I remember. So then we start thinking, okay, there's a lot of conditioning that limits my capacity of free will, which is the way I would view it. Versus you're just, stuck. You're just, all this chemistry and body-mind thing that happens, and you basically don't really have a choice. And what a wonderful thing to think you have no agency in your life and who you become. Let me go listen to that talk again. Versus, you can be a participant in who you become. And now, if I do certain things, I'll have certain results. So for example, again, with this meditation, if I were to engage in this practice of cultivating shamatha, what I have noticed over time is I'm much more capable of directing my attention where I want. I can be less distracted. I'm much more capable of knowing what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And that's a result of this practice. This practice is designed to do that. I do that. When I used to play basketball, I would practice free throws. And, same thing. Bounce 3 times, muscle memory, shoot. And then I could close my eyes, bounce the ball 3 times, and it would go in. Cause, result, right? I'm doing things that will create a result. I chose to practice, and if I practice that, it would work. If I choose to cultivate attention and engage in a practice like this, over time I'm going to be more attentive. I'm going to notice my mind wanders more, and I'll have a chance to have more choice in my life. But if I'm not there to make a choice, who is? And therein lies the habits, the conditioning, the reactivity, the mindlessness of life. That I have feelings, experiences, I get caught up in fear, anxiety, hopes, worries, and I am completely fused with those thoughts and emotions, and I don't have a lot of choice. It's hard to have a lot of choice when you're angry, when you're fearful, when you're jealous, when you have envy, and so those points in time, we don't have much choice, much free will. Maybe we have the muscle to allow those emotions to subside before we, do something. So when you start thinking, well, what is free will? And Lama Alan has a definition from a Buddhist perspective of the ability to consciously make choices based in wisdom and compassion that are beneficial to oneself and others. So conscious, I need to be there. And then based in wisdom, in reality. Compassion is the idea that reduces suffering, that is beneficial to oneself and others. I tend to think of it in this real practical way of humans. Can I consciously make healthy choices that are beneficial to the life that I want to live? A meaningful life for me. Can I do that? Very simple, right? So how many choices do we make all day long? There's millions, right? Millions of choices. Do I scratch because I have an itch? There's just so many things we do that we're unaware of, that we're making a choice. And then there's a very big difference between motivation and intention. It's interesting when people say, I'm not very motivated, or so-and-so's not motivated. We're always motivated. A lot of times I'm motivated to not do something. Highly motivated to not do something. And, when I have an itch, I'm motivated to scratch. When I'm cold, I'm motivated to put on a jacket. I'm motivated all the time. Right now I'm motivated to take a drink of water, by the way. A little bit of a dry throat, impulse, motivation, do something. So many of our motivations are actions and choices we are unaware of, right? Itch, we're scratching, we're not really aware of that, moving our body. And so it's really not about motivation. It's about being aware of the motivations and having a choice to respond. And that's a very different thing. We're always motivated, but can I be aware of those motivations, and can I have a choice about how I respond to the motivation? And therein lies some opportunities around intention, right? Intention is a conscious intention to do something. And I might have a conscious intention to do something that I am absolutely not motivated to do. And then I have a lot of conflict there. And I might feel very powerless. And so if I want to cultivate, and I think about free will as a skill I am developing, so I can have a little more free will than I used to, right? There's a lot of things that are beyond my capacity, certainly at this moment, and that is feeling depressed or feeling anxious, or these things that arise that don't really have a lot of choice about. But I can engage in practices that overall can reduce those types of experiences and feelings. And I can... Recording in progress. Now that I'm being recorded...
We lost the signal for a second.
Yeah, no problem. It just means I need to be mindful of what I'm saying. It can now be held against me. Recorded.
Yeah. You were recording the whole time.
So, working with a skill of free will then is motivations. Okay. Now, if I can be aware of motivations, I'm going to notice that I am motivated to not do certain things. I'm motivated to do certain things. And then there's often a primary motivation is pain. Okay. I don't want pain generally. And so when there's pain, it's amazing how motivated we can do to do something to remove the pain, okay? And so physical pain, pretty easy. I get that, right? This hurts, I want to stop doing that real quick. Have you ever noticed how helpful deadlines are? Yeah, like, man, all of a sudden I got some motivation. I recently finished a master's degree, and at midnight on Sunday, you'd be amazed how motivated I was to finish that paper. It was pretty funny because it was midnight Pacific time. We're in Mountain time. So I actually had till 1. And, and I turned in a lot of papers between midnight and 1. And because, deadlines, right? So there's a motivation, though. We don't want the result, right, of failing. So I don't want pain. I don't want things that are going to turn out badly. Deadline's a good motivator. Pain's a good motivator. One of the biggest motivators, though, generally is not those. We're keenly aware of those. Reward is an underlying massive motivator. And this is where dopamine, serotonin, these come into being. So it is really easy to do things that are going to give me some dopamine. Okay. Real easy. So easy that I am totally not going to do these other things because I can feel good right now. I can go get distracted. I can go, get caught up in something else. And what's that old saying of, yeah, I'm going to get to that after I do this, rearrange the sock drawer, clean my house. Like, I just do everything else in the world except what, I know is the important thing to do, right? And so now, we got these devices, Man. Yeah. I was watching this little pig take on 2 little tiny dogs the other day on a YouTube. He's holding his own. It was just like little baby ones, doing their thing. You think, oh, that's kind of funny. And I think, well, so real easy to get caught up in something, right? And it's rewarding. It feels good. I'm distracted from things. I'm engaged in this thing, right? And so reward and these little dopamine hits on demand. I mean, we have on-demand dopamine, whether it's cell phones, emails, distractions, things that we have around us. We have so much that we can do instantly to feel good. And it will often take us away from doing things we feel good about. Right? So we talked about in a previous talk the dopamine deficit, and I recommend people checking out the book, The Dopamine Nation, to show what we're up against, because we can instantaneously feel good in a lot of different ways, including a lot of things that are just distracting, and not engage in things that actually provide a much deeper, long-lasting sense of well-being, connection, meaning, and purpose, which often requires effort and the ability to engage in things that don't feel very good at the moment. And actually, that's the way that you would really balance it all. Have a little more serotonin release with a greater sense of connection, meaning, and purpose instead of the straight dopamine feel-good thing. And that's going to be done often through doing things that are uncomfortable, that require some effort, that you feel good about. And that's going to create a much greater degree of well-being. And so this opportunity then is, how do I build reward in to the things that I will feel good about, instead of making it a big chore? And so a couple Ghatikas ago, might have been one of the first ones, right? Joyous effort. And that is recognizing the value in your effort and giving yourself a reward for it. And as I mentioned at that talk, is we tend to put a big effort into something that we know is healthy and meaningful or good for someone, and it was tough and it was a struggle, maybe caretaking, and serving someone or being of service, and it was effortful, and then I'm done, and then the reward is some distraction and some, activity is not very healthy that actually robs me of my ability to have more choice. And so we start turning our meaningful activities into chores and effort, and then the reward is distraction and things that actually rob me of my ability to do the things I feel good about. And so the capacity of free will is to start flipping that a bit and recognizing and clarifying not just the value in what you're doing, but attaching a reward to it. Allow yourself to feel good about the good that you do. That's why after a meditation, I said, you might want to pat yourself on the back, It's like, hey, I did that. That was good. And being aware of its impact. So if I'm to have free will, I'm going to need the capacity not to just know what I'm doing and why it would be meaningful, but to actually do it. Okay? And so my mind-body will be absolutely antithetical to something I know would be good. And there's a lot of times it's just not going to happen. And so if I'm developing this skill, this muscle, it is not that I'm going to now restructure my whole life. I'm going to build in the structure. Here's the habits that are going to make me the person I want to be. I'm going to engage in that. This is a commitment. It's all going to be different. That's going to last about 2 weeks maybe if you're really good. But rather, what's one thing that I know will be helpful in my life that I want to incorporate now? You know, what's one little thing that I would like to do? What's one of my sort of biggest habits or tendencies that keeps robbing me from my capacity to do what I know is meaningful? And we just start there. We just start with this one thing, okay? And lately, so I've got this one thing. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I got this one thing I'm working on. It's my biggest thing. And what I've told myself, this is it's a unique thing that I'm doing for me now. It's probably not unique in the world, but for me, is that if I get to the end of the day and I haven't engaged in that activity, I now look in the mirror right in my face and say, you lived with integrity today, John. You get to lay your head down. I know that you lived in integrity with your intention. And it feels good. And now there's a bit of a reward tied to that. There's a reward throughout the day of not engaging in that activity, noticing the impulse, and not doing it. Right? It's this mental habit I have. And so now, got day 7 in, I think, today. And so it's just this one thing. But what's happening is I'm more mindful of the impulse of that habit. And I'm developing a choice to not engage in it and do something else. Well, that same muscle is going to apply to my other habits, right? And so this one thing, and then, you know, I'm in the mirror and I look at that, and the downside is I gotta look at this, but, you know, it's the benefits override that. So to look there and, okay, now I feel good. And then, you know, I'm creating this actual, tangible, you know, visceral thing at the end of the day. And, you know, then the struggle is, let's say you didn't uphold, right? Because believe it or not, you might have it and you might fail. Though I did resist licorice yesterday. Man, I was thinking about it. I was shopping because I got to spend a week up here and, you know, my little snacks. And licorice is sort of a desire. But I didn't do it. So, but let's say I did buy some licorice. That's not my habit, by the way. It's just a tendency. So let's say whatever my thing was, I get at the end of the day. You don't want to look in the mirror and go, you screwed up, John. You want to look up and go, this intention's important to me and I want to learn to live with more integrity. And there were many times today I didn't give in. You know, so you're just being real clear, right? Shame, you know, beating ourselves up, those are not very helpful activities to cultivate free will. Reward is to acknowledge the good that we're doing and how many times we do live with that healthier choice. But to do any of this, we need to be present, right? We need to be aware of the choices, aware of the habits. And so this shamatha practice for me, I think, is the most important skill for humanity right now. I do not say that lightly. The inability for us as humans to not have a choice over what we attend to is literally giving up all opportunity of free will. And we live in this fast-paced, multitasking, email, cell phone, connected world of activity. And this mind is just, I mean, when this practice was developed, I mean, thousands of years ago, they thought they had a busy mind. Right? Ours is just crazy with that. And so, this being the medicine, the antidote to being hooked by that obsessive compulsive busy mind, is foundational to even having a choice, because it starts with being conscious, knowing what I'm doing. And then can I be aware of why I'm doing it? So at the start of the meditation, I said, what's the purpose of what I'm doing? What's the purpose? Am I just sitting down? We're in a meditation thing. The guy's leading the meditation. I'm going to go ahead. Or maybe I'm just going to do my own thing. We just might do that. Why am I here? What's the purpose? Is it worth doing? And being clear about that is, just foundational. Why am I doing what I'm doing? What's its purpose? Does it support the life I want to live? Does it support the kind of person I want to be? That's the beginning of having some free will. Knowing what you're doing and why you're doing it. I mean, wow, how much of the day, am I not? So this practice of cultivating shamatha, it has one goal. This practice has one goal. It's not an insight practice. It is literally just a practice to cultivate attention. Allow you to be mindful. That's what it does. And so as I talked about earlier, focused on the breath, I'm developing a muscle of attention. Every time I notice my mind has wandered, I become mindful. I know where my mind is. That's absolutely awesome. So many people think they're failing because their mind's wandering, when in fact you're succeeding because you're catching your mind wandering. That's where your power is. When you're mindful, you have a choice. When you're not mindful, you have no choice. Mindful, I know where my mind is. Now I have the muscle, the choice to develop the muscle. Come back to the breath. Every time I do that, I'm developing free will. Every time I make that choice, I'm developing free will. I'm developing the skill of making a choice mindfully to do something, regardless of what my mind wants to do. And so just this practice, shamatha, itself is a foundational skill of being developed to have free will. And then we get to bring it in. We just did a retreat up here on clear comprehension, which is the ability to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, purpose. Appropriateness is what I'm doing suitable to the purpose, right? Here's what I'm doing, and is my action matching the purpose? Is it workable? So do I know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it? Is my action suiting the purpose? Is it appropriate? Can I maintain my awareness during it, right? Know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and is it based in wisdom, right? So is it what I'm doing and why I'm doing it based on reality of the experience, or my fears or projections, or am I caught up in envy and all that? Or is it, oh no, yeah, I understand this is a healthy thing to do given the situation. So what would it be like to be able to have that capacity more often? And like any other skill, it's literally just, you get it by practicing it. More often than not, what am I doing and why am I doing it? Does this support the person I want to be or not? So we generally train people to set an intention in the morning, which is like, I've got this one thing I'm working on. After I nail this one, I'll get to the other 83,000. But I'm on this one, okay? Those others, they'll still be there. I don't need to rush. And so I meditate, and I set my intention. I work on this one thing. Throughout the day, I stop and I check in a few times. How you doing with that thing? Were you successful? Not successful? In the evening, kind of notice, what am I learning about that habit? What are the skills? And then, I've added the mirror thing. You don't have to do the mirror thing. But I find it meaningful. I'm digging it. I almost went to sleep the other night without the mirror thing. I got up out of bed, walked to the mirror. Said, hey, how you doing? No, I said, you're going to bed with integrity tonight. You did it. And because it's also easy to fall out of that habit, right? We can do all these things, and we've all done good, healthy habits, and then they fade. And so this opportunity then is developing the habit, and this muscle of free will is to just little one thing at a time, bringing that to mind. And what happens is, with the meditation, you're developing the muscle of free will. You're developing that choice. You're mindful more often. You're in the ball game. You know what you're doing. Now, why am I doing it? Is it helpful? We start to live mindfully. And those check-ins throughout the day is just a little reminder. And, sometimes post-it notes can be helpful. I had a friend who, she traveled for work. So she went from one location to another. And so she had a little sticky on her steering wheel. Because she'd get in the car, she'd take a moment, remember what her intention is. Then she'd go on to the next thing. And so, if we want to have some free will, well, what we also get to do is water, nurture, and grow the kinds of thoughts and habits that we would like in our life. Now we have agency. In other words, I'm the person I am in part because of how I was raised, the environment, the conditions, right? But I'm also the person I am today because of the choices I've made and the types of attitudes I've nurtured in my life. The people I've been around, the people I've chosen to be around, the types of activities I've engaged in, the types of thoughts, the books I've read, so forth. And here's where most people, miss the boat, is we don't recognize that my free will is only reactive to an environment or an impulse or a situation. I can start watering, growing, and nurturing certain thoughts and attitudes and even emotional experiences that I want to have. So we have practices like the 4 immeasurable attitudes of equanimity, loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy. So in the morning, you can start to water, nurture, and grow a certain, I'm just going to go with gratitude, right? So I can take some time every morning to cultivate gratitude and think about what I'm grateful for and cultivate some of those attitudes. Not a long list. Doesn't work a long list. That becomes very rote. I'm grateful I have a house. I'm grateful I have water. I'm grateful I can walk. I'm grateful I can see. I just got a list. But in this moment, what's 1 or 2 things that I'm just really appreciating, that I'm very grateful for? And, I get to stay here last night. I get to stay here for a week. And, last night I was just like, wow, how amazing. All the people that created this environment, the Carmelites who created this intentional community, the efforts here, the volunteers, and the people that make this possible, and the opportunity to be here. And, just this one thing that I get to have some stillness and some solitude in my life. And, Aaron brought me some salsa, so, just saying. A lot to be grateful there. Not just any salsa, like the salsa. Hang on, I'm just thinking about the salsa for a moment. And and then there's this opportunity to in the morning, well, I'm going to cultivate gratitude. And when you're cultivating gratitude, you're not angry, frustrated, resentful. You're not in desire. You're in gratitude. So with free will, the idea of free will is you can be an active participant not only in who you become, but in the types of attitudes, the types of even emotional experiences you'll be cultivating, because you can water and nurture them on purpose. But if we don't do that, then we're always on defense. We're just always on defense. Whoa, this happened, I feel grateful. This happened, I feel frustrated. This happened. And I'm always just working with the emotional mental experience that's arising, when I can be proactively cultivating and nurturing the attitudes that I would like to grow, like equanimity, compassion, loving kindness. I had the honor to fill in for a friend yesterday on a loving kindness practice for a group. And, when we do a loving kindness meditation, we're cultivating loving kindness for self and others, and we're doing this practice. Well, that's watering and nurturing those imprints within my mind. So I'm choosing to do that, and I find that I'm more loving and kind when I do that. So the inputs are important, right? And so I can be wanting to be a kind, loving, caring person, but I'm not taking the time to cultivate those thoughts. I'm just hoping they arise. Or I have a motivation for it, but I haven't done anything to grow them. So the tendency here then, when we think about free will and this skill, is this garden that, what are the seeds we are planting? What are the unhealthy habits, the weeds that pop up that we get to get rid of? But more importantly, what do we want to grow? Right? What do we want to grow? And so it's taking some time in the morning, taking some time throughout the day to water, nurture, and grow a certain attitude, a way of being. Otherwise, we really don't have free will. We're just whatever's popping up. You're going to the grocery store and you're just taking what's there. You're not having any opportunity to have the input to who you become. And in this whole process, what's so easy to forget is that we're always in a state of becoming. I'm not fixed. And so, who I am today has all these inputs of conditioning, habits, tendencies. What I'm doing today is helping be a part of who I become. What would it be like to be a participant in who I become? And in my own life, what I've found is the more that I've been able to nurture those four immeasurables, nurture and grow gratitude and appreciation, guess what pops up more often? More gratitude, more flexibility, more choice, because I'm nurturing and growing them. So it's not just being mindful and having a choice. It's about taking actions actively to water, nurture, and grow the types of behaviors, habits, mental states that you'd like to have, right? We want to plant those seeds, we want to grow them, we want to nurture them, and bring them into our hearts and minds. And that's the piece I think that gets missed a lot. I think people talk a lot about being more present, responding in a healthy way. How about I proactively start growing so I don't have to react in that way? This happens, and it's just, oh, okay, let's do this now. Instead of, whoa, this is happening, I feel like this, I need to go through this whole process. I can start nurturing and growing an understanding of reality and an understanding of the qualities I'd like to participate in that help me have the life I would like to have, the person I'd like to be. And so every day waking up and knowing that this could be your last day. So that's reality, could be your last day. How do you want to live? What do you want to grow? What if it's not your last day? What's the kind of person you like to be? So that my life is dependent upon a myriad of causes and conditions, and the one thing that I actually have choice over is what I do. Yeah, I may not have a lot of choice over the habits and things, but I do have the capacity to have a choice over the actions I take if I develop this muscle. And then those actions can either support the person I want to be or limit. And then we come into the real crux of the issue, which, I just laugh at myself. Because, I feel very fortunate. So I happen to be a Buddhist. There's not a Buddhist talk per se, it's just human. But I am Buddhist, and I have this belief system that I can be totally free of all these mental afflictions, can be awakened, can be free of all this, and achieve Buddhahood. I actually believe that, right? And then, and I have access to this path of awakening. All the skills, all the tools, all the practice has been offered to me. I have great teachers. Everything's there. You have complete access, path of awakening, liberation, everything's possible. Here's the directions. And I'm going to go watch Netflix. What's wrong here? It's like, okay, this day's only coming once in your life. Could never happen again. What are you going to do? Right? And and to consciously know you're doing it. Right? So that shows what we're up against, right? That we can have this resistance to things that we know are absolutely and believe in. And so the cognitive dissonance, that's what it's called, right? My actions do not match my values and beliefs. And so, and in between that's a lot of stress and lack of self-worth and those types of things. So rather than sit there and go, okay, you have everything you have to achieve enlightenment, you're over there doing this, you don't beat yourself up for it. You just recognize, oh, okay, this is the work to be done. Everything in the path to liberation is about undoing the habits that prevent you from doing that. And it's these little steps. Because if it was just that easy, I think we'd all be hanging out, in Buddhahood. And it just doesn't work that way. So then it's this opportunity to sit there and go, okay, when I think about liberation, and so these two verses that I know there's many of the students on here that we do every day, this opportune physical form is more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. You only gain its like the once. So hard to get, so easily destroyed. It's like a lightning bolt in the sky. In other words, everything you need's here. It's all available and only in this moment. Contemplate this and you will see all worldly actions are but winnowed chaff. So all this stuff I'm caught up in, it's the part of the wheat that's thrown away. And night and day you must extract some essence of this life. I, a yogi, practiced in this way. You, wanting liberation, should do the same. And every time I get to that sentence, I just laugh. It's like, yeah, it's all here. And you should do the same. I think, yeah, I probably ought to. It's solid advice. Really solid advice. And so I think the biggest obstacle then is that seems so far away. Right? Yeah, I believe I get it, but it seems so far away. But if you break down that last sentence, you wanting liberation should do the same. And that's where it's about noticing the little liberations. I am much more free from mental afflictions than I used to be. I have a lot more healthy habits than I used to. I am much more liberated from a lot of my fears and insecurities than I used to be. And liberation's not a moment, it's a process. And so every day, noting those liberations is coming back to that reward system. if I don't take the time to notice and viscerally integrate my liberations with the reward of the value of what I'm doing and how it adds to my life, if I don't notice and take time to recognize and feel good about the good I do, I am missing the whole reward system. And then it's just work to do something to some faraway thing that I don't see. But rather, every day, notice and acknowledge your liberations. Notice and acknowledge the good you do. Rewire this system and allow yourself to feel good about the good you do. And then our motivations, again by reward, is doing this healthy thing feels much better than doing this other distracting thing. I want to do this. It feels good. I get a reward. And I'm not having to do battle all the time when I recognize the little liberations instead of some faraway philosophical thing. Now I'm much more inspired to do it. I can see and recognize the value right here, right now. And it feels good. And so if we're going to put all these components together, it is first and foremost being able to be present, conscious, meditation practice. Then it is to actively have an intention about a particular quality that you'd like to cultivate and maybe one you'd like to avoid. Making time for that, being clear about your purpose. Here's a day that's coming on. What's your purpose? What are you doing? And then throughout the day, pausing and taking some time to check in with what you're doing and why you're doing it. Does it add to your purpose or does it rob you from your purpose? And if it robs you from your purpose and you're doing it anyway, you go, well, at least I know it's robbing me of my purpose. Like, that's a plus. And I don't say that lightly. I think that's where people go wrong. Is when I'm doing something consciously I know is antithetical to my purpose, I recognize that today I know that. Before I didn't. I just did it. And I go, okay, I'm noting this. Mindfulness, when it arises, notices beneficial and unbeneficial tendencies. This is beneficial, this is not. And over time, what happens is we start reducing the unbeneficial and cultivate the beneficial. But it starts with noticing. So as I'm eating my tub of licorice, I have a pretty good idea it's not that healthy, as I do it. And but it's not healthy to beat yourself up for it. You go, okay, how do you feel about that? You may notice, it probably isn't. And then when I don't do it, do I feel better about myself? Do I feel healthier, more vibrant? And we notice that. So then we really start, instead of having a critical accountability, we have a much more wise understanding of the habits and conditioning and the work to be done. And then it's not like fighting it, it's like slowly letting go of some of those habits, not beating yourself up when you have them. Just, was that rewarding or not? Is it helping me or not? And, maybe it was for a little bit. Not a bad thing to get distracted, go do something, that's fine. And then we just start letting go of some things and we cultivate these other things. So with the meditation, with the clarity about intention, with some check-ins, with knowing what we're doing, why we're doing it, the rewards I just think needs to be built in. We need to be allowing ourselves to feel good about the good that we do. And sometimes the good that we do is just that I'm aware of not doing that good. Like, that's awesome. That is, I think, more so than any other habit I've cultivated, is that awareness in my life, because it just encourages me to keep going instead of giving up. And that's really valuable for me. And as we start to cultivate this, what are the types of habits we want to cultivate, but what are the attitudes? You're worth being a participant in who you become. And then the evening, really, have an opportunity to reflect on that before you put your head down. What they call it, sleep hygiene. That's the technical psychological term these days. Sleep hygiene, really valuable. And that's create some really good habits before you go to bed. And, not just on this thing right to the bitter end until you go to sleep, or emails. It's, a little time before you go to sleep. Take a little time, ground, have some breaths, maybe. Just a little reflection, or just away from a device, and just have a good routine about how you go to sleep, and have some acknowledgement of the good that you did before you go to sleep. I just think that's really important. And so in this way, what I have found in my own life is I'm putting together all these forces to help me actually have a choice. Which you notice there's quite a bit of skills in there. But marshaling reward, marshaling intention, being aware of motivation, being present more through a meditation practice. And always knowing that I'm constantly becoming. That's where it's easy to get stuck. I'm this kind of person, I just had some guy in a class we're doing on a mindfulness class, and he's an evening meditator, not a morning meditator, and the suggestion is meditate the morning. So I got ADHD and I need to do all this, and my mind gets busy and I do that, and that's just the way I am. And I was like, well, maybe if you meditate before all that, you wouldn't be so. Maybe, so we get stuck. Well, maybe it's true, maybe not. But if, what I found is I was not a morning person. I joined the monastery. I'm in, India, and it's a Tibetan monastery, and they get up at, 5 in the morning and got all these things. Guess what happened over a period of time? I became a morning person. Because I got up every morning and I did this. And, today, mostly I get up at 4 a.m. But, so I wasn't a morning person, I became a morning person, right? We get to be a participant in who we become through the actions we take. But the biggest obstacle is that we don't take the action. I want peace, well-being, serenity, but I don't want to do all that stuff to get it. Right? That sounds like a lot of work. I just would rather have it on demand. Is there an app for that? And I'll tell you what, they're selling you a lot of them. Yeah, there's an app for that. Peace and serenity. And so that's the other thing that we tapped into, is how these devices, AI, all these things, is robbing us of our own effort. We're copy and paste. We copy and paste everything. The things are done for us. We don't have to do much from our own side. And that is, I think, one of the upcoming biggest challenges to free will, is our lack of effort. We copy and paste passwords. We copy and paste, those 2-point verifications. We don't think, we don't memorize, we don't do these things. We used to know all those phone numbers. We used to know addresses. We used to write things with hand. We used to type. We used to do things. And all these devices, even our cars, we don't have to roll up your window anymore, most people. I got a friend, he's got a fairly new, he still has a window crane. But think about how much of our own effort we've given up because it's easier to let something do it for you. I want to talk about giving up free will. I've gotten the habit of I will not copy and paste a 2-point verification code anymore. I will memorize it and I will punch it in just so I can use my mind more, And so recognizing what we're up against, I think, is really important. I'm going to stop there. We're already an hour and a half. And nobody chimed in. Usually you guys online start peppering me. But does anyone have a question, a comment, a thought, curiosity? Yes?
You talked about setting an intention at the beginning of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, how do you choose one intention? And sometimes I feel like, wow, I need to work on a lot of things right now.
Great. Yeah. So for those of you online, the question is, how do you settle on one intention? There's a lot of things to work on. And so I generally encourage, what's the biggest one? Okay. So what's one thing we notice that is just kind of the biggest? And what you will notice is as you work on that, you'll actually be working on others. So for example, patience. Let's say I picked patience. Patience is the ability to endure discomfort and not to be impulsive and to be a little more thoughtful about what you do. So if I'm just working on patience, would that help me with a lot of other mental afflictions? Being uncomfortable, not being as impulsive, being more thoughtful about what I do, and being okay feeling a little discomfort. So, by the way, patience is always a good one. Whenever I'm confused, I'll go with that one. And you'll notice it'll help all these others. Maybe a lot of people. So whatever that value is, you're going to notice that it will also trickle down to the others. So, but what's the biggest one? Like I have this one particular habit I just don't want to do anymore. And I overcame it for like 20 years, and then it propped up again. And so I'm just kind of working on that one again. And so it's very clear for me that particular one. But while I'm doing that, I'm also being kinder, I'm being more patient, I'm being a little more mindful. Yeah, so, often there'll be this one thing that's kind of like the biggest thing you'd like to kind of work on. It could be, I'm sure it's not loving and kind in your case because that's just permeating. But, just what is that quality you'd like to grow? Yeah, start there, and it will impact the others. So there's something online. My greatest takeaway today is that I am not broken. I am becoming. I have training it went away, but.
You want me to read it?
Yeah.
I have training as a Feldenkrais, which is musculoskeletal neurological education practitioner, and one major component is called awareness through movement. One of its main premises is you can't do what you want to unless you know what you are doing.
Yeah. It's helpful to know what we're doing and why you're doing it. Yeah, so maybe we should just wrap up because we were at time. So those of you who would... Oh, one more. Oh, sorry.
Do you mind using this to focus on the
Oh, yeah, I have to repeat it.
I think as a species, we're kind of doomed, though, because this is a lot of work, and most people don't want to do that much work.
Yeah, what's a quote is... I think it's Edison quote, Thomas Edison, I think he said, most opportunities are missed because it comes dressed in overalls and looks like work. right? So we have all these opportunities that look like a lot of work, right? And so as a species, yeah, we are doomed because people don't, generally, yeah, we don't want to work, right? And so now we have a lot of things that allow us to not work very hard, right? Yeah, so there is a huge landslide of conditions that are removing our capacity to do effortful things, right? And yes, a good point that what we're teaching requires some effort and not small effort. And so if you were to step back and look at humanity, you're going to see how reduced the attention span is. You're going to see how reduced, things are even around reflective thinking and attention and the capacity to have free will. So we would call that living in degenerate times, where all this is taking place. And so I like to bring in Mother Teresa, is, rather than recognizing I can't save the whole world, but, I can help the person in front of me. One person at a time, and always the person in front of me. And that there's always been the fish going upstream, right? That's what we are. Everybody else is going the other way. But not to underestimate the power of that. Yeah, from a Buddhist point of view, it's all going to hell anyway. So, we're in samsara. It's just the way it is. But in that samsara are all the conditions to make a difference. And that what we do makes a difference. And that everything that we do makes a difference. And so here we are, right? Talking about effort, talking about capacity, talking about, things like compassion. Then we can start to recognize that, the world needs examples and role models. And when there's enough pain, people seek out those agents of change in a positive way. We have this pendulum. And when there's enough suffering, people become adaptable to learn. And unfortunately, we tend to need a lot of suffering first. And then we become open to these potentials. Another way to look at it is if we go back in time, there's been much more violence, much more killing, genocide, wars, violence in humanity and civilization. And there's been much less capacity to have access to meditations on compassion, teachings on mindfulness, and teachings on self-care. And so there's actually more of that available in the times that we live in than there once was. The challenge is that we're so keenly aware of all the negative stuff now because we have instant, and then all the news is all the bad news. When you pick up CNN, nobody's talking about the neighbor who helped feed the other neighbor who did this other thing. And that's happening all day long. Right? It's happening all day long. There's even a movement amongst college students. It's kind of like the Luddites, where they have vows to not use their phones and social media for social media, and use it only as as needed and things like that. There's within colleges of college students who are saying, I'm not going to get caught up in that. So there are these pockets of resistance to all the degenerate, undermining, habitual world that we're living in. Yeah. Unfortunately, some of those good ones are, let me get a cap that'll do my brain meditation for me so I don't have to. Yeah. Trying to get the mic.
With all this work, Jack is a sad boy without play, one might say.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the role of play?
Yeah, very good. And, that's an interesting thing because we just called this work instead of play. Right? So there's the label. man, I got to do all this work, versus I get to do things that help me be the human being I want to be. You know, it's kind of exciting to do some of the things that allow me to be the human being I want to be, the kind of partner I'd like to be in a relationship, the kind of father I'd like to be, the kind of friend I'd like to be. And so when we're doing something that we feel good about, like play, like basketball or hiking or dance or, you know, whatever thing. So hang on here. You know, joy, play, reward, you know, and that's where I was getting to, is that our practices don't need to be work. They can be joyful effort. And so hiking, dancing, vacations, the only difference between it being a prison that imprisons me to habits is my presence of mind in them. If I'm in a vacation in Hawaii, am I paying attention to the people I'm traveling with, the people I'm engaging with? Am I engaged with loving kindness? Is it purposeful? I'm doing, well, it's fun. You know, I can be on a beach in Hawaii, fully engaged in the life I want to live, the person I want to be. Or I could be miserable. I was actually on a beach in Hawaii. This old lady was just pissed off, yelling and getting her grandkids because somebody took her parking spot. And, you know, and so, right, I can be miserable in Hawaii, or I could be fully present and engaged in a life I find meaningful, right? So rather than distinguish what I might call work or play, how about I distinguish with, am I purposefully engaged in what I'm doing? And is it adding to the quality of my life? Yeah. Microphone, sorry. It goes to everybody online, so I don't have to repeat it, apparently. Okay.
One of the pieces that makes me optimistic is watching people like you speak, and you can see your happiness and joy. And I think the path does reduce suffering and does provide more happiness, and for each of us, and it, you know, over time that grows. And so there may be mornings you get up and you don't want to meditate and you're exhausted, and actually one of my teachers says, well, relax, you know, I mean, so, but I do think that you were talking about rewards, and there is this hugely intrinsic reward, and it's visible when we hear teachers like you that have been practicing for a long time and see your ability to laugh and smile as you're discussing this.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's nice to. I've been fortunate to have teachers who are having fun too. Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you. I found your talk, it was so down to earth and helpful, and thank you.
Oh,
for
thank
that.
you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I got a lot of human in me. Still there. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all so much. It's great to have those of you physically here, all of you online. A real joy. I see some dear friends, familiar faces, some new ones. At the end, I always like to take a moment, if you'll indulge me, and just dedicate all this, what we call merit, this virtue that has been cultivated from our time together for the benefit of others and for our own continued spiritual growth. So those who care to, let's just take a moment to recognize that there are many things we could have done on a Saturday, many activities we could have engaged in. Some could have been extremely beneficial, some not so beneficial. And today we chose to gather together to cultivate and reflect upon, think about opportunities to improve the quality of our lives and be of benefit to others, to reflect upon some potential skills that allow us to engage in our lives in ways that are meaningful and fulfilling, that add to the goodness that's in this world to support and nurture compassion and wisdom. And that's a great deal of merit. And let us dedicate our time and energy, our intentions, our motivations and actions for the benefit of all others. May the ripples of our time together and what we do in the world find its way into the world, have an impact on how we treat each other, be of greatest benefit to all. And may we also use the nourishment of our time together to continue to grow in our own lives in the spiritual paths we find meaningful, so we can cultivate and grow the qualities that are greatest benefit to ourselves in the lives that we define as meaningful. All right, well, thank you all so much. Such a good joy to be with all of you, and again, all of you online as well. So as I like to say, have some fun in there, not just out there. And yeah, let's be good to ourselves and others as best we can. Thank you.